Hello, virtual. Whoa, I don't have my mic plugged in. Whoop. Now I'm a different man, aren't I? All right. Hello, virtual English 2 students, and welcome to day 3 of us reading Act 1 of the Crucible. So here's where we left off yesterday. We left off on page 1246. So if you upload your PD, or if you get your PDF loaded up, that's where we'll be picking back up. While we wait, today we kind of talked about in class the importance of how to cite text evidence properly. And anytime you cite text evidence, it's pretty simple. You just need to kind of point to where you got your information at. And most of the time, a parenthetical citation like so can accomplish that deed, where you include the author's last name and the page number you found that information on. So now that I have my PDF pulled up, let us begin. So I'm going to pop over here. There we go. And that's where we left off. It's 1246, or technically it was page 13 of the PDF. And John Proctor and Abigail were kind of flirting. And pretty much this entire page, you can kind of see John Proctor has the idea of no, and Abigail has the idea of yes. And I highly recommend reading this particular page because it is juicy with some interesting things that are happening. We move on to the next page, and there's a prayer going on downstairs, and that begins to freak out poor little Betty, who's passed out. She begins to like flip out, like going crazy, screaming and everything. And everybody runs up to see what is going on. And on 1248, we get another long piece of exposition. But this piece of exposition is pretty important because it helps set in just how petty some of these arguments are. And long story short, you have the nurse, this entire section is talking about the nurse faction and the Putman faction, and the Putmans and the nurses don't get along because they're neighbors. It gets so bad that even right here we have this. The nurses, by blood or friendship, and whose farms are contiguous with the nurse farm or close to it, combined to break away from Salem authority and set up Topsfield, a new independent entity whose existence was resented by old Salem Knights. So the argument, like, they did not like each other to the point where the nurses almost started a new town, and they're like, forget your town, man. Then we interact with Rebecca Nurse. Rebecca Nurse so far is the most sane person in this entire play that we've interacted with. And basically she helps calm down Mary Warren, and she basically is like, hey, I've done this before. I have 11 kids. I'm a 26-time grandma. I've seen all those kids through their silly season. Back then they didn't have the word for puberty, so she basically said silly season. So basically, yeah, she's like, these kids are just going through puberty. It's that time of their life that they do this. So don't worry about it. But of course, none of these people are going to worry about it because these adults are weird. This is where we begin to see the adults take sides. Once again, we have the nurse faction and the Putman faction. And so all the adults start kind of siding off on which side they're going to be on. It's really a lot of like Thomas Putman's ego versus Rebecca's sanity or just like normalness. And so that's kind of the thing that's, I am very, very sorry. That's the thing that's butting heads. I do like the line here at the very, very bottom where we have Proctor to Putman. You cannot condemn Mr. Paris. We vote by name in this society, not by acreage. Kind of saying like, hey, Putmans, I know y'all think you're all that and a bag of potato chips, but it's not based on how much acreage you have. Everybody has the same vote. And then we come on to this page and we have another dimension in this standoff. Eventually it's going to be like two sides to this argument, but there's currently a third side, which is Paris. And we begin to see why Proctor has an issue with Paris right here. We get to see what Proctor's issue is with Paris right here on page 17 or on page 1250 of the actual text. We go down to here, and here, all right. So right here, we have this really weird tangent that Paris is about to go off on. He's all about like getting proper payment and whatnot. And you're like, what the heck is he talking about? So, in a long story short, keep in mind that Thomas Putman kind of had the guy that was the preacher before Paris jailed for debts. And so Thomas Putman has a lot of control on how much money the preacher gets. And keep in mind, he wants his brother-in-law to be the preacher, so he makes the preacher's life not that great. And so Paris is arguing about like his firewood, which he was promised, and gets wrapped up in like his salary. He starts talking about his salary. He starts talking about his how he wants the deed to the house and all that stuff. Basically, that's what all of this is. He also drops the line like, "I went to Harvard." Yeah, so people from Harvard were kind of like that back then, even then. All right, then we move on to this page on 1251. And there's a really good joke right here. Okay, so here I'll just read it because I always like this part. Paris in a fury. What are we, Quakers? We are not Quakers here yet, Mr. Proctor, and you will tell me, and you will tell that to your followers. My followers? Paris, now he's out with it. There's a party in this church, and I'm not blind. There's a faction and a party. Against you? Against him and all authority. Well, then I must find it and join it. The Proctor's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not the leader of this like faction, but if there is a faction about a bunch of people that hate your guts, let me join. I'm all board. I always like that line. It's like, oh, if there's a faction, I want in on it. If there's a one for people, there's a guy named Giles Corey who shows up. He has a pretty fine line in the beginning. Is like, hey, I heard the girl fly. I'm just here to see her fly. Essentially, earlier on in these proceedings of today's reading. Down here, we hear Giles Corey is a little Sue happy. The face-to-face students seem that they really liked Giles Corey, especially what happens right here, right before we end. Once again, this is just Putman's ego, and the Putmans thinking that they own everything and deserve everything is happening right here. And Proctor and Giles kind of have a nice back and forth. And like I said, the face-to-face students really liked Giles Corey right here. We stopped at enter Reverend John Hill Beverly. And that's important because tomorrow we might have an AMI day, and I will be back to kind of record a video and explain what we will be doing for the AMI day, which will be involving the Crucible. All right, but that's it. That's it for today. I've been Paul Davidson, your English teacher. If you have any questions, please email me at pdavidson@portagel.k12.ml.us. Until next time, bye-bye.